Hello my dear friends. So in today's video we are going to continue talking about Coir, and we will talk more about key myth of using Coir, as it's a very new product, comparatively new product for use in horticulture, in agriculture and home gardening, as well as for the house plants. There are quite a lot of myths surrounding it. So today I will explain you what's right and what's not right about key 8 myths surrounding usage of Coir for your home plants. And at the end we will finish with 3 key golden rules that you should follow in order to avoid being disappointed by using Coir. Before I start, don't forget that I have another video about Coir, which you can see now on the screen, and you can check the description to this video to see the direct link to go and watch it. So this video is also about Coir. It explains what it is and how to prepare it and how to use it for your plants. So with this, let's start. Myth number 1. Coir is naturally high in potassium, and therefore it's excellent for your plants because you don't need to add any potassium fertilizer. So let's see. The truth is that Coir is indeed naturally high in potassium. However, it's not that great because potassium interferes with digestion by plant of calcium and magnesium, which are also necessary for the plant's growth. Therefore, if you would be just using untreated Coir, you would naturally get deficit of magnesium and calcium in your plant, leading to several other diseases. Now, because Coir is rich in potassium, it's actually generally treated before being sold and used for growing medium to decrease the content of potassium in Coir. It's done by adding to it calcium solution, buffering solution, and therefore leaching potassium to this solution. And after this, Coir becomes suitable for using in for your plants in agriculture and gardening, and for your house plant as well. So what's important is that you read the content of Coir while you are buying it, and always do buy it from reputable supplier, because then you have better guarantee that this Coir actually was pre-processed before being sold to you for your plants. Myth number 2 is that Coir has high content of sodium, which is not good for plant growth, and therefore it should not be used for your plants. So let's look into this in more details. Coir fiber is one of the natural fibers which is actually resistant to damage by salt water, which contains a lot of sodium. This is the reason why sometimes salt water is used for processing Coir. Now, there are 2 types of Coir. One is brown and one is white. So usually salt water is used for processing white Coir, but in agriculture you use brown Coir. So chances are that Coir that you buy for your plants has not been processed with salt water and therefore doesn't have a high sodium content. Another thing which is also very important is referring to my previous myth, where I was talking about calcium buffering solution, which you add to Coir because of the high potassium content. It actually works in the same way for sodium. So if your Coir was pre-processed with calcium solution, then even if there was some sodium, it's no longer there, or the quantities of it are very minimal. So again, the solution is do buy it from the reputable supplier and see what is written on the packaging before using for your plant growth. So myth number 3, There are different variations of this myth. Coir is free of wheat seeds, coir is free from bacteria, coir is free from fungus, and coir is sterile. So all of them are trying to talk about the same thing, and the reason for that, I believe, is because coir is not in contact with soil. Then the assumption is that it doesn't get those pathogenic fungus, bacteria, wheat seeds, and so on, which you would get from soil generally, because soil is full of life. And I'm planning actually to make a video about soil very soon, explaining what soil is, what's important about it for the plant growth, which will provide you basics for how you should think about your plant growth and what your plants need. So do subscribe if you have not done so yet, in order to get notified when I post this video. So coming back to the myth number 3 about soil being sterile. In fact, it's actually heavily contaminated with fungus and sometimes even weeds. And therefore it's very important to know how it was produced and buy it from the reputable supplier. Exactly. So I do have here 2 examples about what's actually going on. So the first one is about coir that has been imported in New Zealand, which was done since 1989. So by 2009, which is 20 years later, a total of 25 new weed species have been found in imported coir. As a result, New Zealand amended its biosecurity regulations. So as you see, there are weeds. So another example I have here is from Mexico, and coir from Mexico has been found to contain large numbers of colonies of the beneficial fungus Aspergillus terreus, which acts as a biological control against plant pathogenic fungi. So you see that it's not sterile. There are at least fungi, but also bacteria. In this particular example, they were good for your plants, but as you can assume that there are also others that are not that good. And there are many other examples that you can find on internet where something was discovered in coir, confirming that no, it's not sterile. And it's actually not cheap to sterilize your coir. And therefore I'm not aware of any coir that actually has been sterilized in order to ensure that it doesn't contain fungi, bacteria, and weed seeds. So myth number 4 is that coir is a neutral medium and therefore it's not an allergen. In fact, coir is an allergen. Also, latex and other materials that are used for production of coir are also allergen. So do be careful if you are an allergic person. So myth number 5 is that coir cannot be reused for planting other plants. In fact, it can be reused. Of course, it's very important that you are not reusing coir from diseased plants, because they do contain those diseases in it. However, it can be reused up to 3 times according to manufacturers. And again, just use your common sense. I would say that maybe you might want to sterilize it before usage, maybe no, maybe you can just add it a little bit. Just see what are the risks of reusing coir, and how and whether you should reuse it at all. I know there are also quite a lot of questions about reusing of soil for the house plants, so I will in future make also a video about this, whether you should or you should not, and if you should, how to reuse it and so on. But for now, I would say it's a very difficult topic, and there are a lot of things to consider. So if you can, I would say not to reuse your soil, just use it somewhere in the garden, for example. But if you have to reuse because, for example, you don't have access to good soil, or you cannot buy it, you don't have enough money, then watch my video. So myth number 6 is that coir can be used around delicate plantings in your garden, for example strawberry, because snails do not like their texture. So if you spread coir around your plants, then they wouldn't be able to come and eat your strawberries and other fruits and vegetables and plants. So in fact, I'm not sure where it's coming from, because if you just check internet, then coir is very often used in the terrariums for snails as a medium. So I'm pretty sure that if you can use it in a terrarium for them, then it probably would not have that great effect in your garden to deter snails from your food. Myth number 7 is that coir has a neutral pH of 7, which is also not true. Coir actually has a pH of about 5.5 to 6.5, which is slightly acidic. For some plants it's okay, for some plants it's still slightly acidic and the pH needs to be raised if you are just using coir without anything else. However, yes, I would say that peat moss, which is often used as a basis for soil mixtures for the plants, is actually way more acidic than that. So compared to peat moss, coir is less acidic, but still not neutral, something that you need to consider. Now, obviously, if you are using peat moss, then you should add some lime in order to neutralize the pH and to raise the level of pH. But obviously, you might not need to do it for coir, or you need to add less lime. So consider this ranges of the pH, 5.5, 6.5, and I do hope that you have a pH meter in your garden at your home, because for many plants it's very important to know their pH in order to ensure that you have the best growing conditions for them. Myth number 8 is that coir does not have any nutrients in it, and therefore it needs to be plants needs to be supplemented from the beginning using fertilizers in order to ensure their growth. So it's actually true for coir which is not used for agriculture. For example, that's the coir fibers that used for producing ropes, because indeed, as we explained before, possibly some potassium, maybe calcium, but you don't have nitrogen and anything else that you would need for the plant growth. However, in fact, you have to be very careful about this when you're buying coir for agricultural use, because many good producers, reputable suppliers, actually do add nutrients to coir before selling it. So therefore, you always should very carefully read what's written in the manual or on the packaging, because they would say, for example, it contains NPK 20, for example, or it also contains micronutrients and so on. And always read, they would say how long you can use coir before supplementing. So it varies. It can be from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, depending on what they use and how they add it. But it means that you don't need to use fertilizers in most of the cases from the beginning. Again, if you're buying it from a reputable supplier where it's actually explained what was added to your coir. Okay, so now that we finished with 8 myths, we can formulate the 3 golden rules of buying and using coir. So the first rule is always buy it from a reputable supplier. How do you know that it's reputable? Look at the packaging and see what is written on it. See if it has the usual information, such as who produced it, where it produced, QR code and so on, but also some specific information. For example, what is the composition of coir, for example, whether it's based on coir pith, on coir fiber, on their mixture and so on. Is there any nutrients added? What is the NPK content of the coir? And what is the recommended use, including how much water you should add for this coir. So if you have this information, then likely that you are buying it from a reputable supplier. The second rule is actually very much related to this. Do read what's written on the packaging and make sure that you understand what's written. If it's not, if you don't understand, watch my videos or Google what you don't understand, but make sure that you are using it, knowing everything what you need to know. And rule number 3 is about usage it for your plants. Personally, I think that you should not use coir as a growing medium for your plant, but rather using it as a soil amendment, because it's an excellent amendment, and roots of plants grow so well in soils that contain coir. However, if you are just using coir as a main medium and then you add water and fertilizers, basically you are just using it to contain your plant like any other hydroponics, sorry. Anyway, so, and I think it's a little bit too expensive to use it for that. So it is an excellent growing medium amendment, and I will soon also record the video explaining how to use it and which proportions in soil, especially soil for small seedlings, because it's very important to get it right so the roots can grow very fast and very well, and you don't get diseases of your plants. So this video is coming very soon. Don't forget to subscribe, and do write in comments if you have any other questions about coir and its usage for planting. Bye.